All right, and welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. We have a whole lot to cover today. First off, we're going to start with the morning games, and I'm going to cover the amazing Colts and Patriots game in Germany. The Colts won 10-6. It's kind of what I expected out of the Ravens and the Browns, but we'll get to that later. Gardner Minshew, 18 for 28, 194 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, 2 rush attempts for a negative yard, 6.7 points. Not a great day for him. Patriots defense showed up today or on Sunday. Jonathan Taylor had 23 attempts for 69 yards and a touchdown, only 1 reception for 6 yards, 14.5 points. Still a pretty good day at a JT, considering what most of the rest of everyone did. Zach Moss only had 1 rush attempt for 2 yards. That was it. No catches or anything. So it's very clear the direction that this team is moving, especially with a shot at a playoff berth. They are currently 5-5. Michael Pittman had a decent day. 8 catches on 12 targets for 84 yards, giving him 16.4 points. You love to see that.
Yeah.
And Josh Downs, again, was somewhat still limited on that knee. He only played 25% of the snaps, but in the 14 snaps he did play, he caught 2 of his 3 passes for 40 yards, giving him 6 points. When he is back and healthy, which they have a bye this upcoming week. So after that, I think he will be good to go. I don't think he's a guy that you panic and drop, especially if you've watched the snap percentage. He's a guy that has been playing well over 70 the whole season pretty much. So in his absence, though, you saw Isaiah McKenzie get a bit more playing time yet again. He played 26 snaps, 46%. He ended up with 4 catches for 31 yards, playing that slot role that Josh Downs does play. So when Josh Downs is out, Isaiah McKenzie's in. I guess a decent showing. But just to show that if Downs doesn't go out, those 4 more targets and catches likely go to Downs. That 7.1 more points. So he would have had like 13. Not saying 100% that would have happened, but we've seen the targets that Josh Downs draws in this offense, so we know what he's capable of.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce played 96% of the snaps, the most of any skill player, but only drew 1 target, caught it for 21 yards, 3.1 points, and yep, that's really all for the Colts. They clearly scored a touchdown, kicked 1 field goal. Matt Gay got 4 points, so yeah, on to the Patriots. Mac Jones got benched yet again in this game after throwing an interception, was 15 for 20 for 170 yards before that, had 3 rushing attempts for 25 yards, 8.3 points, and Bailey Zappi came in and on the final drive threw another interception, so it was much better.
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson had 20 attempts for 88 yards, 3 catches on 5 targets for 14 yards, giving him 13.2 points. You'd see this and say, wow, Mondre got all the work. But he didn't. Zeke got 13 attempts. So the Patriots ran the ball 33 times in this game, which is, I mean, they clearly can't pass. So, but yeah, Zeke ran the ball 13 times for 54 yards, caught 2 passes for 34 yards. Would have loved to see that go to Mondre, but so be it. 10.8 points out of Zeke. I mean, he gets enough volume to, I guess, be viable. Because, I mean, the Patriots don't really pass that much. I don't know. This offense isn't that great. There's really only a few pieces that I'm even interested in. The next one being Demario Douglas, who caught 6 passes on 9 targets, 84 yards, 14.4 points. Clearly, he is the guy right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially with Kendrick Bourne gone for the rest of the year, it's going to be Demario Douglas. It's going to be interesting to see, are they going to roll with Mac Jones again next week after benching him for like the 4th time this season? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't. But yeah, on to the rest of the guys. Juju was very unimpressive in this one. 99% of the snaps he was out there for.
Yeah.
Caught 1 pass on 1 target for 9 yards. So Juju is about what I thought Juju would be. Yeah, Demario Douglas out there for 72%. So he's the guy that I am most interested in by far. Mondre and Zeke splits. Mondre was 67%. Zeke was 33%. The splits for tight end, Hunter Henry 72%, Gesicki 67%, and Pharaoh Brown 48%. Hunter Henry caught 3 of 5 passes for 21 yards, giving him 5.1. Gesicki caught 2 of 3 for 22, giving him 4.2. Like I said, the only ones in the Patriots offense that I really have any interest in are Demario Douglas and the 2 running backs. So unless you have anything to add to that game, we can move right on to the next one.
Yeah, that game was ugly, and I mean, that's kind of what we expected it to be. This next game was a lot more exciting. It was the Texans at the Bengals. The Texans were able to win 30-27. CJ Stroud is very good at football. The Texans' turnaround this season has been incredible to see, and it is led by CJ Stroud. He had yet again, a very solid fantasy day, 23 of 39, 356 yards, a touchdown. He threw an interception. He rushed it twice for 8 yards for another touchdown, 20.04 fantasy points. He's becoming a guy you can start every week.
Yeah, and before you get into the next guy, I'm going to just say I'm going to hold my L on this because I said that I didn't think he was startable because we saw him get volume and do nothing with it. Well, they turn around and hand him the ball 30 damn times.
Yeah, Devin Singletary, 30 carries, 150 yards, very efficient on the ground, a touchdown. What?
Like,
no, I mean,
you just don't.
You don't know. You just don't know. No one expected Singletary to be that good.
Horribly inefficient on the ground against the Panthers. I mean, that's one of the worst rush defenses in the league. It's just there's no consistency on a week-to-week basis for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very true. And I mean, he also caught one out of the backfield for 11 yards on 2 targets, 23.1 fantasy points. He played 81% of snaps. If Dameon Pierce is out, Singletary is going to get all of the volume. And I'm curious to see how it shakes out when Dameon Pierce returns. I think it's going to be ugly, and we're going to have to wait and see. But a huge week for Singletary. If you were in a spot where you had to start him, and you did, kudos to you because that paid off big. And then their 2 main receivers. I mean, it was a solid week fantasy-wise for really all the people we considered starting. Tank Dell had 14 targets, caught 6 of them, 56 yards, a touchdown, 1 rush for 13 yards, 18.9 fantasy points. Great week. Noah Brown stayed absolutely hot this game. 8 targets, caught 7 of them, 172 yards, 24.2. I mean, just monster weeks from both of those guys, and that's without Nico Collins. Like, CJ Stroud still found a way to get it done, throwing 356 yards without your number 1 receiver. That's huge. John Mechie, 4.5 fantasy points. Robert Woods, 2.5. Not really guys we're looking at, especially with Nico Collins when he does return. Dalton Schultz was serviceable again. 6 targets, caught 4 of them, 71 yards, 11.1 fantasy points. Solid day.
I'll take it.
All the weapons in Houston. And, even for the Bengals, I mean, they had, they scored 27 points, so they had solid fantasy days too. Joe Burrow, 27 of 40, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 5 carries for 20 yards, 21.88 fantasy points. He had a couple, as, me and Schiff had discussed, a couple really ugly, uncharacteristic picks, but fantasy-wise, we don't necessarily.
It doesn't matter fantasy-wise. And yeah, these aren't discussions that we're going to have on this podcast due to the fact that this is only fantasy related.
Yeah.
So
him scoring, 21.88 fantasy points is a good week.
It's good.
It doesn't matter if, he may have lost him the game, whatever the case. He still scored 22 fantasy points. That's all we care about. Joe Mixon, I honestly am surprised he didn't get more volume in this one. He had 11 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. He saw 3 targets, caught 2 of them for -1 yards. We love stat lines like that. They're just, I mean, he finished 12.5 fantasy points. He didn't kill you by any means. We hope to see a little more than that, but again, 12.5 shouldn't have lost you a week. Jamar Chase only saw 6 targets, but caught 5 of them for 124 yards and a touchdown, 23.4 fantasy points. A great week for Jamar Chase.
Yeah, he's probably going to have another good one this upcoming week. They're going to be likely missing T. Higgins again on a short week. So,
and due to them missing T. Higgins, a guy that I do like starting again would be Tyler Boyd. In this one, he saw 12 targets, caught 8 of them, 117 yards, 19.7 fantasy points. And we say this about Tyler Boyd. When guys are missing, he either does absolutely nothing or he will have a couple really huge weeks. And this was one of them. If you started Tyler Boyd, 19.7, absolutely got the job done. Someone we said that, we feel comfortable enough starting if you had to and you were in a bad spot was Trenton Irwin. I mean, he only saw 4 targets, but he caught 2 of them, 54 yards and a touchdown, 13.4. Played 81% of snaps.
I did say if you had T. Higgins and you were missing him and you need a receiver, you don't have Tyler Boyd, go out and get Trenton Irwin.
And he got it done. He absolutely got it done.
May have been one of the few things I actually correctly foresaw this week, but
it was
something.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. You hit on that one. And the tight ends they kind of mismatched on their snap percentages this week. It seems like every week it's kind of like that. Like this one, Tanner Hudson was the highest scoring tight end. He only played 31% of snaps and got 7 targets in that time. Caught 6 of them, 33 yards, 9.3 fantasy points. I don't feel comfortable starting any of them because you have him, you have Irv Smith. It's so crowded there. You have Drew Sample that got like 5 targets. It's ugly. I'm not starting any of them. You're happy if you have Joe Burrow because he's finding other guys to get the ball to, but on a consistent basis, no. But
should be an interesting Thursday night matchup.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had for that one. It was a solid fantasy week for both teams.
Yeah. On to another game, which, strangely enough, I mean, you did see some solid days out of a few people, but that's it. Just like the crazy thing, the score of this game, the Browns at the Ravens, 33-31. You look at that score and you think somebody went absolutely ballistic. Nobody did. Nobody scored over 16 points. The highest score in this game was Amari Cooper with 15.8 points. That is just thinking about that, like, and looking at that's just kind of because then you watch the game, no one was really doing that much. There were big plays here and there, but it was a grimy ass AFC North game. It came down to the final second of the game. The score was obviously way beyond what I thought it would be, but I mean, even the projected point total was 38. But anyways, Deshaun Watson, 20 for 34, 213, a touchdown, a pick, ran in a 2-point conversion, had 8 rush attempts for 37 yards, 15.2 points.
Yeah.
That's it. And I said I wasn't excited about starting him or Lamar this week. Lamar, 13 for 23, 223 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, one that his right tackle just got destroyed. And it's like he's throwing a screen. So it bounces off the D lineman's helmet like 20 yards into the air, and its picks is just things that just happen. 8 attempts for 41 yards, 15 points from Lamar, 15.2 from Deshaun. I did not think either one of them would really do too well in that game.
Yeah.
Neither did. Jerome Ford had a very efficient day, but didn't end up getting in the end zone. 17 carries for 107 yards, got a catch for 2 yards on 1 target, 11.9 points. So, I mean, this is a pretty solid day, but yeah, Kareem Hunt, 10 attempts, 32 yards, a touchdown, 9.2 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Njoku was the one, he outdid my expectations a little bit. 6 for 9, 58 yards, 11.8 points.
It's a
So I mean,
solid
pretty
week.
good for a tight end. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially for a tight end. 6 for 9 for 98, 15.8 points for Amari Cooper. Pretty good day.
Yeah.
But like I said, he was the highest scorer in a game where 64 points were scored. And the highest score was 15.8 points. Just thinking about that is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore caught 5 of his 7 targets for 44 yards and a touchdown, 15.4 points. He's a guy I'm interested in as Deshaun Watson starts to get more acclimated. I think he's probably like the number 2, number 3, maybe behind David Njoku.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we'll see. But it was a decent showing from him. He's been drawing targets. Definitely somebody who could deserve a roster spot at the very least.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that was about it. I mean, obviously the kicker had a good day. Lamar Jackson already covered him. Gus Edwards, 11 attempts, 24 yards, a touchdown. Caught a pass for 4 yards on a target, 9.8 points. Justice Hill only had 2 attempts for 7 yards. Yeah, so the snap percentages in this one were all funky. Once again, last week, Justice Hill played 63%. This week, he plays 26, Gus plays 52, and Keaton Mitchell plays 24, but was the highest score on the Ravens on, once again, 3 rushing attempts, 34 yards, a touchdown, and caught 1 pass on 2 targets for 32 yards. Why John Harbaugh does not use him more?
It's a question for
I
him,
don't
right?
know. And they asked him, and he's like, well, I really don't know. That's a good question. Thanks.
I
Thanks,
love that
bud.
from him. I love
Thanks,
that.
bud. Ridiculous stuff. But yeah, so hopefully we see more of Mitchell on Thursday night. I'm going to be starting him regardless because I'm stupid, but it is what it is. Yeah, Mark Andrews caught 2 passes on 4 targets, 44 yards, 6.4 points. I mean, like I said, Zay had a better day than I thought. Caught
Yeah.
5 passes on 6 targets for 73, 12.3 points. I mean,
Solid.
that was much better than I expected. Odell caught 1 pass on 2 targets, but it happened to be for a 40-yard touchdown. So he skated by with 11 points. And then Rashad Bateman, 4 targets, caught 2 of them, 25 yards, 4.5. I think better days are to come from this offense. Clearly, while they scored 31 points, it was still a tough defense. Still limited what this offense could do. Both offenses were still limited despite scoring a large amount of points, mostly because each defense scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
That'll kind of do it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and just to quote myself on saying that Rashad Bateman should kind of be looked at as the next guy up in the receiving room. He played 74% of the snaps this week compared to 33 from Odell, 43 from Aguilar.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Take that for whatever the hell it's worth. On to the next one.
Yeah, and the next one was the Saints taking on the Vikings. I'm going to give my credit to Josh Dobbs because we love that guy. We love that guy on here. But we got
love the guy, bro. We're a big fan. On the First Team Fantasy podcast, we are Josh Dobbs' #1 fans.
That is valid.
Despite being Ravens and Raiders fans, we are Josh Dobbs fans.
Yeah, but I'll start with the Saints because they were the visitor and they did lose the game 27-19. Derek Carr looked very, very Derek Carr-esque in games when
He didn't
he's
finish the
bottled
game,
up.
did he?
No, he played 49. He basically played half the game. Played 49% of snaps before he left with that concussion. He was 13 of 18, 110 yards, a single carry for 10 yards, 5.4 fantasy points. Jameis came in and replaced him, played 49% of snaps as well. He was 13 of 25, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks, 10.88 fantasy points. Jameis comes in the game, and he's just like, I'm just slinging this thing, dude. I don't care.
Oh, yeah, his touchdown to Chris Olave. I mean, honest to God, if you are a Chris Olave owner, you love
You
to
need
see Jameis
Jameis.
Winston in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But if Jameis Winston is going to be playing, I don't think you could start Taysom Hill.
No. And Jameis will always be Jameis. The fact he played half a game and threw 2 picks is just hilarious to me. He comes in immediately, 2 picks. It's like, dude,
It's the Jameis Winston experience. He giveth and he taketh right back.
yeah. And only running back worth mentioning because Jamal Williams is just not fantasy relevant by any means. Kamara, 9 carries, 42 yards, 7 targets, caught all 7 for 33 yards, 18.5 fantasy points without a touchdown. We love to see it. Very solid week from him. Chris Olave, as we just mentioned, had a very good week. 9 targets, caught 6, 94 yards and a touchdown, 21.4 fantasy points. Very solid week for Olave because we have seen him have some very bad weeks. So we are happy to see him have a good one.
Yeah, Olave owners are praying for Jameis Winston starting week 12.
And Saints fans are probably hoping that Derek Carr is back.
They are hoping that Derek Carr is back from the concussion in week 12. But, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Thomas, I think he only played like, I don't know why I forgot to write the snap percentage, but if I remember right, it was like
I can check real quick.
It was like 7 or 9% of snaps. He did not play very much at all. I think it was 7.
No, it was 3.
It was 3. Okay, yeah, he played 3%
He played 2
of
snaps.
And you know what's crazy? In the 2 snaps he played, he was targeted both times. After being goose-egged last week, he caught 1 for 9 yards, 1.9 fantasy points, injured the knee. Apparently, it's fairly significant. We are late enough into the fantasy season. You'll probably get the news by, maybe not by the time the waiver comes out, but based on them saying fairly significant, he might be a guy we have to drop.
Yes, he might be a guy we have to drop, but they are also going on a bye this week. So there's a chance we might not get any significant news about this all week.
Yeah.
So you are going to be left, number one, probably without a designation. So you're not going to be able, he's just going to be on a bye. You're just sitting there questioning whether or not, do I drop this guy? Are they going to put him on IR? Are they going to mark him as out? Probably not going to do anything this week because they're on bye. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So it's a scary one because we're getting later into the fantasy season, and just having a guy getting a roster spot is very tough. So I mean, that's the decision for you to make. But if you're thin at receiver and you have to drop him to grab a guy off waiver, I don't blame you for it, because it does seem like he very well could miss the rest of the fantasy season, if not the rest of the actual season for the Saints. And
just having the coach come out and say it's fairly significant. It's not a good sign.
No,
it's not a good sign at all.
With him being out, a guy we kind of saw, A.T. Perry, played 84% of the snaps, saw 4 targets, caught 2 of them, 38 yards and a touchdown, 11.8 fantasy points. A guy to put on your radar. I mean, he played more than Rashid Shaheed. So I mean, they do trust him. He's a rookie. Hadn't played very much all season. Again, only saw 4 targets, but he's going to be out there, it at least seems like. Yeah, a name that, a late season name that we didn't expect to appear is A.T. Perry, but it does seem like he'll be a big part of this offense going forward as long as Michael Thomas is out. Rashid Shaheed had 9 targets. It was kind of weird to see him catch 5 of them for only 24 yards. They were not going vertical to him at all. He had 7.4 fantasy points, played 69% of snaps. And in a game where Michael Thomas leaves right away, you would assume that Taysom Hill would have been very involved, especially with how they have involved him as of recent. But he was not this game.
Nope.
He saw 4 targets, caught 2 of them, 17 yards, rushed 1 time for 6 yards, 4.3 fantasy points, played 30% of snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, they are going into a bye, coming out week 12. Depending on the severity of the concussion, Derek Carr should be able to go. but we'll have to wait and see on that. Taysom Hill, I am for sure keeping rostered if I'm rostering him currently. He is worth holding on to. His upside is huge at that tight end position. And you know what? If you started him in the tight end role and he gives you 4.3, that's bad, but we've seen that
Yeah.
from, you know what I mean? Like Mark Andrews just got, what was it, like 5 or
Yeah,
6?
6.4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's like, Taysom Hill.
Everybody has their down weeks, but just at this point in the season, one thing I will recommend if you are in a position where you need to win this week, which a lot of people will be, and you need a roster, you need somebody to start, I
Mhm.
would go ahead and drop Taysom Hill to pick up somebody that you
Yeah,
need, because just rostering an extra tight end on their bye week while you need to win
is ugly.
could end up hurting you more in the long run. Yeah, so it's based on your situation. So if you can afford to keep Taysom, you have guys to play, keep him. But
Mhm.
if you need somebody to start, don't hurt yourself to keep basically a backup tight end,
Yeah.
as good as he might be. So
And then we'll go to the Vikings side of the ball, to our favorite quarterback in the league, other than the quarterbacks on our teams, the rocket scientist, Josh Dobbs. This dude is the GOAT. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he came to the Vikings, didn't even know the play, he didn't even know his linemen's names. He's 2-0.
the alopecia animal.
He doesn't care. Anyone can get it from this guy. 23 of 34, 268 yards, a touchdown, no picks, 8 carries, 44 yards, another touchdown, 25.12 fantasy points against the Saints, who have a solid defense.
Yep.
It's like it's
Falcons defense ain't bad either.
no, he does not
I
care. He's
mean,
gonna perform. It's it's unbelievable to see. And Justin Jefferson, get back on the field, dude. We were saying he might have to be shut down for the season. No, this
well,
Vikings team
yeah, and
can
then
win.
because they lost since that they've just been winning.
Uh,
They've just been winning. So that's the thing. It's like, yeah, we expected, okay, they might shut Jefferson down, but that was if they don't do well in their next 4 games. And I think they won them all. So
Yeah,
it's like, this is a completely different situation. They could, I mean, they're not out of the division race.
yeah, they definitely are in playoff contention. Like absolutely. Something that will hurt them is they lost Cam Akers for the season, and they now will be more than likely without Alexander Mattison next week. He did suffer a concussion after playing 45% of the snaps. He was very quiet when he did play. 8 carries,
Yeah.
27 yards, a single catch on 2 targets for 6 yards, 4.3 fantasy points. It was underwhelming, but
As it usually will be against a Saints rush defense, but
yeah,
yeah. The concussion, not good.
no. And with him going out, Ty Chandler kind of stepped into that role. He was inefficient on the ground as well, but he did get volume. He had 15 carries for 45 yards, and he scored a touchdown, which gave him 10.5 fantasy points. Played 44% of the snaps. Only worth mentioning because if Madison does miss next week, they will be Ty Chandler. And he's definitely going to be the lead back. They're going to Denver, who we saw get kind of, pieced up by Latavius Murray and James Cook this week. We'll cover that more later, but Ty Chandler is a very interesting start for this coming week. Someone we will cover in later episodes when we're talking about waiver and things of that sort.
Yeah, we'll see. The concussion protocol has been
Weird this
so
year.
screwy this year. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know if a guy's gonna miss 3 days or 2 weeks. So
Yeah. And then to finish it, the receiving room, Jordan Addison, another, not a quiet week, but 7 targets, caught 4 of them, 69 yards, 10.9 fantasy points. Didn't kill you by any means. We knew the Saints have a very solid pass defense, especially without KJ Osborne. They could hyper focus on Jordan Addison even more. They did hold him somewhat in check. Brandon Powell had 4 catches for 35 yards on 5 targets, 7.5 fantasy points. The real hero for the Vikings, TJ Hawkinson, have a day. 11 catches, 134 yards, 15 targets, a touchdown, 30.4 fantasy points. He only played 63% of snaps. We knew he was banged up coming into this week with the ribs, so maybe that limited his snaps. But when he was out there, I mean, just a monster week for TJ. He's a guy who won your team fantasy games this week. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely won you games. So, an absolute monster week from TJ Hawkinson, and I expect that going forward. I don't think that'll change. I mean, definitely not 30-point weeks, but TJ Hawkinson is, I mean, he's a top 3 fantasy tight end. He just is.
Yeah, I completely agree. Moving on to another game with a guy who's back to being a top 3 fantasy tight end. That would be George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
The 49ers beat the crap out of the Jaguars. It appears having your all-pro left tackle makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure, right? Who would have
Yeah.
thought? Not me. I mean, come on. I did think the Jags had more of a chance in this game, but I think the Niners defense was kind of tired of getting their asses kicked, and
Mm-hmm.
they stepped up.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord. The Niners, Brock Purdy, 19 for 26, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, 23.8 fantasy points. Pretty sure he was your start of the week,
A
if
good
I'm
week.
correct.
Good week from him.
Good week, good call. It hurt to see, but unfortunately, Christian McCaffrey's touchdown streak was finally ended. Although it didn't really matter for fantasy. He still got 20.2 points, 16 rush attempts, 95 yards, 6 catches on 10 targets for 47 yards. Yeah, he had a great day. George Kittle, like I mentioned, 3 catches on 4 targets, but for 116 and a touchdown, giving him 20.6 fantasy points. Ayuk back on it. 3 catches on 3 targets, 55 yards and a touchdown, 14.5.
Mm-hmm.
Debo right back to it as well. 4 catches, 4 targets, 30 yards, 3 rush attempts, 29 yards and a touchdown. Doing Debo things, 15.9 points. Even Kyle Juszczyk got involved in this one. 2 catches on 3 targets, for 26 yards and a touchdown. 10.6 points for the fullback. Christian McCaffrey's quote was, "Everybody but me scored today. I suck. I feel bad."
I
Should have
don't. He's
been.
on the Niners, man. Why they
I
get
mean,
him? Why do they get everything? I'm tired of it.
oh, because some teams, unlike ours, actually value winning among everything else.
I
What
love
the
that
hell?
statement.
I mean, am I wrong? Like the Eagles and the Niners actually want to win football games, so they do shit to win football games. Our teams, they just do shit.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
the reason. They just do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wins us games, but will we see our teams make it to a Super Bowl? I don't know, because we don't go out and get the Hassan Reddicks and AJ Browns and Kevin Byards every single opportunity they get. I don't get it. But
Yeah.
anyways, on to the Jags, which, I mean, hell, there isn't much to talk about. Lawrence was 17 for 29, 183 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 rushing attempts for 7 yards, and a fumble lost, 4.1 fantasy points. Another horrible day out of Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Etienne, one of his worst, 9 attempts, 35 yards, only caught 2 passes on 4 targets for 9 yards, 6.4 points. We can throw this one in the garbage and not look back. The Niners defense was on
Yeah.
its game. Etienne, I have no worries about.
No.
Evan Ingram, 4 passes, caught, 7 thrown to him, 12 yards. Kind of incredible. 5.2 points. Christian Kirk, the guy I said that I was very excited to start. I think I made him my start of the week. The only Jaguar to hit double digits. So I guess I made a couple good calls this week. He caught
Jeez.
6 of 11 passes for 104 yards, 16.4 points. Yeah. And then Calvin Ridley, 2 catches, 3 targets, 20 yards, 4 points.
He's not
Throw
that
that
good.
away.
I don't know what it is. He's just not. I
And
I,
he,
I don't know. I just I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think. I think the expectations coming off of his last season he played were very high.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as far as his ADP and everything,
He was drafted like 5 or 6 rounds before Christian Kirk.
well, that's what I mean. His ADP, that was
Unbelievable.
kind of, it was a huge reach.
To
A
assume, yeah.
huge reach
Yeah.
to just assume that he was going to take over that wide receiver room when we saw them pay Christian Kirk a lot of money last year. So,
Yeah.
or the year before.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that's it.
That'll take it to my last morning game, which was the Titans at the Bucks. The Bucks won it fairly easily, 20-6. And I think it's fair to pump the brakes pretty hard on like the Will Levis hype. He had that first game where he went insane, and since then, the Titans have shot back down to earth fairly quickly. Will Levis, 19 of 39, 199 yards, an interception, 6.96 fantasy points. I think for Titans fans, I mean, he's still better than Tannehill. Even if he's playing around the same level, you'd rather see it from a rookie than a guy that's 36 years old. So it is what it is. But there's definitely more weeks that we're going to see from Will Levis in this offense like this. Because
Yeah.
when Derrick Henry is running the ball 11 times for 24 yards, it's just going to be a bad day. Their pass attack is not good enough to thrive if Derrick Henry is not carrying his weight. He had one target out the backfield, which he caught for -4 yards. He had 3 fantasy points on 43% of snaps. And we said, Derrick Henry had been coming alive. He'd been having really good weeks. But this is just a reminder that weeks like this are in the realm of possibilities for Derrick Henry now. They just are.
Yep.
He doesn't have what he's had in previous years. Tyjae Spears, yet again, outsnapped Derrick Henry by a decent amount this game.
He's going to stay relevant.
Yeah. I mean, he played 60% of snaps, 5 carries, 18 yards. That's not what we love him for. We love him for his pass catching ability, and he caught 4 passes for 42 yards on 5 targets, 10 fantasy points even. Tyjae Spears is relevant. I mean, if you have Derrick Henry especially, he is worth having, just in case. The pass catchers, there's not much to talk about. DeAndre Hopkins did get 8 targets, but he only caught 3 of them for 27 yards, 5.7. That hurts you.
Tyjae also does have standalone value.
Yeah. I just mean, like his
No, yeah. Like, because he's probably not on waivers anymore. Like, for example, I've had him for a while.
Yeah.
Just I was hoping that Derrick Henry would get traded, but even like he didn't, and I'm not gonna drop him because he does have that standalone value.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has the chance to get in the end zone. He's getting volume at the backfield. Tyjae Spears is very solid. Outside of D-Hop, when I'm looking at the other receivers, Kyle Phillips had 9.1 fantasy points, and Chris Moore had 4.1. We're not picking up any of these guys.
Man, I said Kyle Phillips, someone.
I know, but it's like it's so bad. Like if you pick up Kyle Phillips and start him and he burns you, it's like, dude, what are we really doing here?
Well,
But
you can't go into it expecting too much.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a possibility that he'll get some decent amount of volume, but
yeah,
if
it is what it is.
You gotta level
man.
your expectations with these things.
Yeah, and then Chiggy Okonkwo had 6 targets, caught 3 of them, 27 yards, 5.7 fantasy points. Disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Nick Folk kicked 2 field goals. Does Nick Folk things. Baker Mayfield has been solid this year. You know what? Browns fans were disrespecting him a little bit. And he's solid. Baker Mayfield is not terrible.
He kept me alive in guillotine.
Yeah.
So, shouts out to him.
Yeah, shouts out to him for killing me in guillotine. I digress. He ended my season in guillotine. He's the reason I'm out of guillotine.
He kept mine
he kept
alive.
you alive.
He kept mine alive.
No.
Shouts out my boy.
But yeah, Baker Mayfield, he's been solid this season. And he had a solid fantasy day. 18 completions, 29 attempts, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 3 rushes for 12 yards, 19.32 fantasy points. He did bang up his thumb in this game. He played through it. The Bucs and Baker Mayfield himself has said he is fine, so I am not too worried about that going forward. Rachaad White has been very solid the past 4 weeks. 20 carries for 51 yards. He's still extremely inefficient on the ground, but it doesn't matter. They gave him 20 carries anyways. Why not? He had 3 targets out the backfield, caught 2 of them for 47 yards and a touchdown, 17.8 fantasy points. Very solid day for Rachaad. Mike Evans, very Mike Evans-esque game. 10 targets, caught 6 of them, 143 yards, a touchdown, 26.3 fantasy points. Very good week. Chris Godwin, 6 targets, caught 4 of them, 54 yards, 9.4. Baker likes Mike Evans a lot more than Chris Godwin. A lot more than him. So it's, with Godwin, if he doesn't get in the end zone, he's going to have a middle of the pack week.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And then Cade Otton played 95% of snaps. He caught 2 passes for 10 yards on 3 targets, 3 fantasy points. He'd had 3 really solid weeks in a row. It's just tough with him because, 1, they play the Niners next week, so I really don't like him next week.
No.
And currently, he's the tight end 20 on the season, and it's because, he had those 3 really good weeks. He had a 10-point week earlier in the season, but when he doesn't have those, it's 2 points, 3 points.
It's just hard because he's on the field the whole game.
The entire game, he's out there. But there's probably more consistent. There's the Logan Thomases out there that will probably consistently get you better volume than Cade Otton, but Cade Otton's still a guy. Not next week against the Niners, but he is a guy, if you feel confident in the matchup, you can roll the dice on him, and it can pay off, or it can absolutely burn you. So.
Yes.
But that is all I had for that one.
Yeah, on to my last morning game. The Packers at the Steelers was... I don't know how the Steelers keep winning games, but they do. They are not.
You play teams like the Packers, of course you're going to win. They're losing everyone.
Kenny Pickett was 14 for 23 for 126 yards.
He's terrible.
That's what I mean.
He is awful. He is not good at football.
Bro, Mike Tomlin is a god.
He is.
That's the only
it's a masterclass.
But, yeah, man. Jordan Love, 21 for 40, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 2 rush attempts, 11 yards, 18.7 points. He's a fantasy relevant quarterback, but I don't know if Packers are too happy. No. Aaron Jones, 13 attempts, 35 yards, 4 catches on 6 targets for 19 yards, 9.4 points. Apparently, Aaron Jones being off the leash is him getting 56% of the snaps.
Yeah.
So, yeah, A.J. Dillon still got 34 snaps to Aaron Jones' 38. So, like I said, coaches are liars. Don't listen to what they say because they will say, oh, yeah, we are unleashing Aaron Jones. And that means giving him 4 more snaps than A.J. Dillon. which the prior week he got 12 more.
Yeah.
Coaches are
Doesn't make
liars.
sense. Yeah.
Coaches are liars. And on that note, A.J. Dillon, 9 attempts, 70 yards. He got a 40-yard run, which kind of boosted that, but still was more efficient on the ground than Aaron Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Caught one pass for 11 yards on 3 targets, 9.1 points. Not the greatest day out of that backfield, but if you could have combined the two of them into one score, that would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's 2 of them. Luke Musgrave, decent day for a tight end. 2 catches, 4 targets, 64 yards, 8.4 points. Christian Watson.
I mean,
Yet again. 7 targets, only caught 2 of them for 23 yards, 4.3 points. Burn notice. Romeo Dobbs, better. 3 catches on 5 targets for 31 yards and a touchdown, 12.1 points. The apparent star of the show, number 1, lead receiver. I say lead receiver because we kind of made a joke about how he was literally the leading receiver in that receiver room with like 333 yards. Well, 5 catches on 5 targets for 84 yards and a touchdown, giving him 19.4 points. The rookie, Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
I guess he's just the guy. I don't know what. I mean, it's just being 100% honest and transparent. I don't know. When it comes to this Packers wide receiver room, it's like a carousel.
Yeah.
And I know the one week I really start trusting Jaden Reed or Dobbs,
He'll give you like 4.
Christian Watson's going to score 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just the way that this season has gone. It's been all kinds of screwed up. But yeah, so that's what you got out of the Packers. The Steelers, like I said, Kenny Pickett is pretty bad. 126 yards on 14 completions, 23 attempts, 4 rushing attempts, 16 yards, 6.6 fantasy points. If you were ever considering starting Kenny Pickett, I'd consider stop playing fantasy football and get help.
Yeah.
Najee Harris, I said I like Najee. I think he's pretty much back. Well, funny enough, they are right back to splitting snaps with him and Jaylen Warren. But it didn't matter in this one. Each had 33 snaps, and they each killed it on their 33 snaps. Najee, 16 attempts, 82 yards, a touchdown, caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 14 yards, 18.6 points. Jaylen Warren, 15 attempts, 101 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 catches on 4 targets, 9 yards, 19 points.
Solid. Both of them.
And that was really all the scoring at all. It, as you saw, Kenny Pickett completed 14 passes. 5 of those were to the running backs. So, yeah, he only completed 9 more passes. 3 of them went to, what the hell is this? Connor Hayward. I always want to call him his brother's name. 3 of them went to Connor Hayward. He 32 yards, 6.2 points. I mean, he outscored Deontay Johnson. Caught 1 pass on 4 targets for 17 yards, 2.7 points. George Pickens, 3 catches, 4 targets, 45 yards, 7.5 points. Yeah.
That was without Jair. I mean,
yeah, Deontay played 82%. Pickens 95. Robinson 77 without a target. The Steelers' offense is a thing of utter, just gross, slimy nastiness.
Yeah.
But they win. So shouts out to Mike Tomlin. Not Kenny Pickett, though. Because Jesus Christ. Deontay Johnson suffering.
Yeah, but Najee and Jalen, been solid.
Yeah, no, and we did talk about that, but yeah. And that'll be all for the morning games. We will take a break and be back with the afternoon, Sunday night, and Monday night recaps, as well as the waiver wire. So stay tuned for that, guys, and we'll be back soon.
Sir.